Obi-Doo, it's everyone's favorite boomer and vintage lens enthusiast. I originally bought the Nikon Z50 because I have the Z6 and a lot of vintage lenses, so I figure by just having a couple of adapters I could shoot more than one lens at a time or mix and match and all that good stuff. But I only have one Z lens, which is the 20 to 70 millimeter f4, and well, do I like it? Not really. It seems harsh, or I don't know how to describe it. But besides from getting a bunch of vintage lenses, which I do like, some of them I like a lot. I said, well, maybe I should get some some other Nikon glass, like Nikon the D series and the G series. So I went out and I bought this Nikon AFS Nikkor 24 to 50, 85 millimeter, 3.5 to 4.5 G. G means that there's no aperture ring. You have to use the camera to control the aperture ring. It has autofocus. You could go to manual, auto, or manual, which is a joke. But this type of G lens will work on the autofocus of the Z50 with the FTZ adapter. Let's look at this for a minute. It's completely electronic. There's all these electronic contacts. There's no coupling gear to worry about. So it's all totally electronic, and it works through the FTZ adapter. FTZ adapter. So I got this lens and I slapped it on and I went to do a photo shoot, and bagosh and bagora, I'm getting pretty shitty results. So if I get a beat lens, I'm going to have to return it. Well, while I was looking through the menu previously, they have this thing. They have it here. Where the hell is it? AF Fine Tune. And if I go here on let's look at this list. Oh, well, it recognizes 24, 85, 3.5 to 4.5. That's called position 00. Okay, I'll hit enter for that. It's a save value is -10. I had to put it -10 in. I wasted like a whole photo shoot where if I was to magnify a picture, do I have something in here? Yeah. If I was to magnify a picture, that last little bit was blurry. All the pictures that were taken, that last little bit was blurry. So now, after doing -10, it's a much better lens. Whatever the camera's doing is compensating. So that worked out really great. So you need it. But then I figure the FTZ adapter, well, maybe if it's off by 1/1000th of an inch, then you have to fine tune the coupling, and it works really good. So there's another thing, is the Z50 doesn't have in-body image stabilization, and this G lens doesn't have optical IS, so you have to use a fast shutter speed. ISO 800, shutter speed 350 or faster, and then pick up the slack with the aperture. That's all. So it turned out to be a pretty decent combo. I'm satisfied with this lens. I really torture tested it by shooting it into the sun, and from wide angle 24 millimeter to 85 millimeter. Of course, on a crop sensor like this, 24 millimeters is really 36 millimeters. What can I say? It's still considered wide angle, but it's not super wide angle. So it's got really nice plastic construction. It's not cheap plastic, it's nice plastic. It's small and it's lightweight because it doesn't have IS. Of course, it's small and lightweight. And aside from that, it's a pretty good combo. I like this lens. And I went to the park and I took some pictures of the reeds and the bulrushes and the creek and my usual walk about the park. And we're going to see that following. And then it's the usual. We're going to see a full frame crop, 16 by 9, shrunk down to 1920 by 1080, and then I did a 1920 by 1080 mask, and I cut some area of interest out so we could really check out the fine detail, same as always. So without further ado, let's jump right into the pictures, shall we? The AFS Nikkor 24 to 85 millimeter, 3.5 to 4.5. It's not a cheap lens. It's a G lens, so it's pretty recent. It doesn't have IS built into it, but it's still even used. It's a couple $100. So I was upset when I shot a first light and I was pixel peeping and it just seemed soft. And at first I thought it was because I was using a slow shutter speed, or maybe I was using the aperture wide open. So I bumped the ISO up to 800. I was shooting at 1/320 or faster per second, and f10, 11, and 16. And you know what? It didn't seem to help at all. Not at all. Not in the least little bit. So it was very upsetting. And then some of the pictures, I really wanted them to be good, and they weren't. And you can see here that they're just not sharp or crisp or have fine detail. So I started looking into the problem, and oh, well, you know, in the menu, they have, in the wrench menu, which means like the toolbox, they have a thing called AF Fine Tune. So I just started plugging in numbers to see what would work. Plus numbers were worse. Minus numbers were better. Plus -5 was an improvement. But then I had to go to -10. And -10, it worked really good. But then I got a whole bunch of these pictures in the can, which I'm showing you, where they're just a little bit soft, even though I stopped down and using a fast shutter speed. So the camera wasn't focusing on... I have a focus confirmation box in the center of the screen, and it turns green when focus is good. So it was telling me focus was good. I went home and looked, they weren't sharp. It's 20 megapixels. I said, well, maybe it was better than the optics. You know, the chip was better than the optics. Well, no, the chip is, and the optics they're pretty well matched. This had to be, shall we say, tweaked in, which I did. And comparing it to, say, the Canon T1i and Canon IS 15 to 85 millimeter, it was like, oh, the difference is night and day. Oh yeah, sure. You know, having IS helps a lot, especially if you get the old boomer jitters. But it turns out it's a decent lens, and once I got the focus figured out, it seems to take much better pictures. This is not a cheap hat. This might be like a $15 hat, and someone left it at the park. Here's a perfect example. I focused on this red leaf, but it didn't come out in focus. But now, these series of pictures, I do have the focus set, and they came out more crisp and nice, and I was happy. But these are the things, you buy a lens, and then you got to play with it. And this is the thing. Suppose I have all these vintage lenses. Well, they're manual focus. You got to do the manual focus thing. Use the focus magnifier, you get the focus you want. And then if you're relying on technology for convenience, so under certain circumstances you don't got to go through laborious methods of getting a good photo, you want to automate it, and it's not working, then that's not really too good. So the Z50 is a great camera if you're going to shoot vintage lenses. There's no doubt about it. And then, of course, Nikon did their thing. They have the Z mount, and they did make an adapter. And the adapter does work autofocus with sort of select G and D lenses. Just as long as they don't have the coupling screw. If they're totally electronic, then they'll work with the autofocus and camera. And then since the Z50 doesn't have image stabilization, well, fast shutter speed, high ISO, small aperture, and then you're good to go. Well, what about the this lens? It's soft wide open, especially at 85 millimeter at 4.5. It's definitely soft, without a doubt. So you got to keep that in mind. But stop down a couple stops, it's a decent performer, and it's a decent zoom ratio too. Uh-oh, chemtrails. There's no such thing as chemtrails, but I took a picture of it anyway. Otherwise, it's a great lens and it's a great combo. Uh, I guess I'll use it for certain situations, but I'll probably go back to my vintage lenses because that's just the way I roll. I think some vintage lenses just have a better look to them. There's without a doubt. Here's some more chemtrails. And it was the read time. The best time to get there, look at reads, is when there's the sun is low on the horizon. You can't beat it. Chemtrails. Look at how festooning they are. I mean, they were spreading out and festooning. Uh, Even if it's water vapor and carbon dioxide, still be injected into the stratosphere where usually you don't get that stuff. And so it must affect some sort of, environmental, more chemtrails. In fact, some days all the trails are chemtrails and they just morph into something else. Here's a perfect example of wide open softness. A little stop down, even a stop down, I was still upset. It should have been sharper. But still, it's a good lens, and you just got to keep that in mind. That you got to buy a Nikkor lens for a Z camera. You got to check out the automatic autofocus fine tune. And I love the shadows, these orange shadows.